Erikan, thank you so much for joining the ScaleUp Africa Wealth and Impact podcast. It's so good to see you. It's
So good
sunny,
to see you.
sunny
Thanks for
gardens
having
behind
me.
you.
Thanks for
Great,
having me.
great, great, great. So, Audacity, tell us about your journey so far. I mean, you are really a corporate executive who knows how corporate America works. You've understood venture capital, private equity, investment. We're very much a global footprint in terms of how you worked and where you worked. So, we'd love to hear more about your story, getting to the point of Audacity and what Audacity's journey has taught you professionally.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Cool. So I am a Nigerian American born in Southern California to Nigerian immigrant parents. So very proudly embody the spirit of California and also my Naija energy. Um, and interestingly, I started my journey actually as a scientist, and I actually think that that gave me a really unique perspective to understanding systems that we navigate today in finance, in corporate structures, in problem solving, particularly as it relates to the many different challenges and opportunities that exist across Africa. So I say all that to say that I have like kind of a science mind. People have sometimes called me a mad scientist, and I'm going to start taking it
In the
as a
best possible
compliment.
sense, of course.
Nevertheless, essentially started out in venture, specifically focused on Africa 10 years ago, initially as an advisor. So advised some earlier funds that are now very successful funds across Africa and some very early stage companies, some startups, while also living in the United States as a member of the diaspora. So I feel like my story is maybe something that people of the diaspora can really connect with, of like, you want to do something back home but you don't quite know how to do that when you're fully living a life in another place. But I essentially spent the majority of that 10-year period really living, parallel lives in the sense that I was living in, let's say, New York and California, building my career in the United States realm, but also flying back to Nigeria sometimes 3 to 5 times a year to advise, source, and support different fund managers and startups. All that to say that led to me being ready to start my own operation in my own firm. So I really kind of got my stripes before I ended up starting my own fund in 2021 called Audacity Fund. And Audacity Fund debuted as the first Black woman founded tokenized venture capital fund. And ultimately, what that means is we used blockchain technology to actually build a fund, which is different and a departure from what most fund structures and like back ends typically look like, which is more or less legal paperwork and a bank. And people, of course, but not super tech enabled inherently. And so we wanted to digitize the fund structure as much as possible. And we're able to invest in 8 companies and super excited about the companies that are carrying on, still building out what they're building, and hope to make some new announcements soon on the performance of some of those different investments from that fund. But ultimately was really proud of what we were able to create and saw it as an MVP for what now is increasingly more popular 5 years later, which is the concept of stable coins and tokenizing real world assets, and the potential, particularly across Africa, for us to bring African assets and opportunities, quote unquote, on chain. So really thrilled about that. And more importantly, I'm excited about where Audacity's evolved into. So today, Audacity Fund was what we went to market with back 5 years ago. And today we are reemerging as Audacity Assets, which is a holding company that essentially has three business lines. One business line is our investments, where we will continue to do venture investments and then long term, more alternative assets, not only across Africa, but across the United States and emerging markets. So that's where we will continue our investment business, but also expanding into a technology business line, which is where we will build or buy businesses that enable us to build technologies, products and service, technology powered products and services that really target gaps that we think are grossly overlooked. And the specificity on that is we're based in the United States, but definitely have tentacles across Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Africa. So we actually see gaps in the US in addition to those same gaps existing, let's say, in a Brazil, in a Nigeria, and a Philippines. So this technology division will build or buy solutions that really service that cross section in the US market and the emerging markets market so that we know we have um, local and global scale for a solution that most people are missing. And candidly, disproportionately, that gap or what that market that's overlooked disproportionately ends up being something that is most applicable to women.
Uh-huh.
So really excited that we get to take that lens and build solutions for those opportunities that are ripe, trillion-dollar economies that just are just inherently overlooked just because unfortunately women are overlooked. Um, the third component is media. So I
Mm.
actually got my start in media. I worked at Condé Nast, where I worked on marketing on Wired and The New Yorker. And then I worked at LinkedIn for a few years in social media, obviously. So media has actually always been my number one place to build business and to build my dreams personally. So we're really excited ultimately to build a media business operation that distributes and creates virality and creates a pipeline for customers, for our portfolio companies on the investment side, for our business portfolio on the technology side. Ultimately, our media strategy is to just build distribution for our different portfolio companies. In addition to shifting and influencing culture globally across languages, across countries, and across currencies. So that is the vision for Audacity Assets, and we are going live with that vision this summer. So you're getting the sneak peek.
Ah,
And
very
yeah, I'm just
exciting.
really excited.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it sounds like you've moved from traditional VC model into really trying to take control in terms of your asset base, your balance sheet, and really generating income that would enable you to build these products. Is that like a summary of what you're trying to
Yeah.
shift
So
to? Hmm.
the intentionality is, I'm a pure business person, even more than just being an investor. I like to build businesses and have, done pretty well at building very successful businesses. One of note is a company called Aku, where I was able to launch the first product for Aku and generate $1 million in sales within 1 minute. And that went on to generating $34 million in an afternoon and $54 million within its first year of business. And, $54 million in revenue for any company is something that usually can take maybe 5 to 8 years. And we were able to do that in
Yes.
365 days.
Yeah.
So that is a unique expertise in business building, but also in sales and marketing and go to market strategy that we believe is world class. And we essentially want to replicate that over and over again
Yeah, because
within
that's
our
tough.
own.
That's really tough to do. And a lot of this entrepreneurial ecosystem, a lot of people are like about the pitching and like no one's building. No one's
And
like
let's
it's
talk
like
about revenue.
who's buying your products, who's paying you,
Yeah.
where's the
Yeah.
revenue? And so it's super
Yeah.
great to really learn about the expertise that you personally have, obviously, and bring to your fund. So that
Yeah.
that is very much something that is actually unfortunately extremely rare, being able to
I
turn
know.
a
I
concept
know. I know.
revenue. And we talk about
So our
entrepreneurship all the time. It's like, are you in business or are you not in business? And
are you in
ultimately,
bit
most people
truly?
are not in business actually.
If we can do that 10 plus times over the course of my lifetime, I will be very happy because, more or less, assuming those revenues sustain, and you more or less get a valuation of 10x or more, you're in the $500 million or $1 billion territory. If we could do that 10 times over the course of my lifetime, then I've built a $10 billion business. And,
Yes.
that's like success. You know what I mean? It's so like,
Immense success.
great. Let's
Given
do
given given the
it.
failures that we've seen, I mean, we all know the numbers game when it comes to venture capital and private equity in the traditional sense. It's very much a numbers game, one in a million, as they say, or whatever the statistics are.
Yes.
So we got to
And
improve on that, like wildly.
the beauty of that, yeah, the beauty of that is as it stands, Audacity is wholly owned and uh intends not to raise outside capital. We want to really build the success story of not even bootstrapped, but we were so good and efficient with our money because we knew how to make it and we were able to recycle it and reinvest it such that we were able to grow it to, 8, 9, 10 figures in revenue that we actually could turn away outside capital
No,
and we
that's
could
great. Yeah.
go to a bank and get valued, but we don't necessarily need to go to a VC to get valued. We could just like ask the market to tell us what we think we're worth, even though we will know what we are worth because we have the capacity to be our own VC. Nevertheless, we will be valued as we need to, just to like actively be in the capital markets. But yeah, just hopefully be a wholly owned, maintain whole ownership, maintain leveraging success of products and services that generate revenue to continue to recycle and grow the businesses that we ultimately have in our portfolio so that Black women, Africans, women can have a success story where a self-funded, bootstrapped, wholly owned Black woman-led business is cranking out multiple billions in revenue. That is the expectation, and I'm sure we'll get there.
Yeah, yeah, we all know the statistics, so it's amazing that you really taken this by the horns and you're really building around that. And also, it's great to see, a lot of people are talking about challenging, the traditional VC model, which has not necessarily worked for um non-Silicon Valley environments. I mean, a lot of people have just cut and paste the
Yeah.
Silicon Valley model in places like Africa, like LATAM, and it's not really worked because it's just the dynamics of these environments. It's really about cash and
Yeah.
turnover. You talked about liquidity, which is, the J curve traditionally has just put a lot of people off, and it's been a really difficult thing to manage. But you're talking about generating sales as revenue based. You have liquidity. You can showcase the value, showcase sales pretty much from day dot, right? So tell us a little bit more about how you obviously challenged the traditional model of finance and venture capital and funding of businesses in Africa. It's not always about, the narrative around the impact story and the philanthropy story.
Mhm.
It's really about ownership and viable business models and knowing how to sell, knowing how to grow revenue, really business
Yeah.
101. Like you sell a tomato
Yeah.
and it costs you $1.
Yeah. Someone
You sell
buys
it for
it. Yeah.
$2, you make your
Yeah.
money and do it
Mhm.
again. And you know your niche, you know your
Yeah.
market. They keep coming back, keep growing your revenue. It's really business 101. So tell us a little bit
Yeah.
more about how you are really championing this shift towards positioning Africa and emerging markets as a viable investment opportunity. You are seeing opportunities that have been overlooked, undervalued, even
Yes.
sidelined, right? Because it's women, because it's Black
Yeah.
women, or because it's Africa. There's a certain risk profile that we
Yes.
all know
There's all
about,
sorts
and
of,
that we're paying for that
yeah,
in different
it's
ways
true.
across
It's
the
true.
value chain of finance. So tell us how you really sort of turn this around. Just a few short minutes that we have left.
Sure. So I can give you one example. So in our investment side of the business, we are instead of raising an additional fund, at least at this time, we're prioritizing select deals from Africa, but also from all over the world that we have built relationships with, some for the better part of the last decade, that are prepared for a liquidity event. And let's say specifically for Africa-focused companies, those relationships that we have and those deals that we have access to, we're presenting them to our global investor base, our global network of investors, and saying, hey, do you want liquidity from Africa? First of all, we know you want liquidity. Let's be clear. Most investors, particularly
Yeah,
who are in private markets, have not seen the liquidity that they want and that they need. And so that's why the secondary market is booming right now. People want their cash.
yeah.
Understood. So you already have them with the carrot on that. And then you can say it also happens to be from Africa. In the past, people might say, eek,
Mhm.
risk, reputation, all that other
Mhm.
stuff, right? But it's like, but I want liquidity. And you're saying it's going to come from Africa. That might not mean as much as is it a business that truly will become liquid and get me my money back at a multiple? And that allows us to kind of cut the line, in our opinion, around the historic dragging of feet around Africa and saying, no, this is an asset that will get you your money back because it's going to go public, going to get bought, whatever it is. It's already on path to doing it. We're bringing your capital on before that transaction happens. So you should see some sort of liquidity max 5 years. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so essentially our intentionality with that as just one of our transitions and strategies is to shift the narrative on Africa equals impact or philanthropy or charity. Even further, Africa equals war, famine, and poverty into Africa equals returns. Africa was the one that got me my liquidity when all of my
Right.
VC investments into funds didn't give me anything. thing. You know, we want to shift the cocktail conversation. We want to shift the conversations happening in those very private spaces where ultra high net worth individuals, allocators, et cetera, have a very fixed and insular story around things outside of what they're comfortable with. Oftentimes, Africa equaling charity. We want to say Africa equals liquidity. So that is our strategy for this particular component of Audacity assets.
Africa equals liquidity. I love it. We need to print some t-shirts around that.
Yeah.
Erikan, thank you so much. I'm wishing you all the best with Audacity. Just tell us how we can support you or if there's any specific ask that you want to put out there.
Yeah. Well, firstly, thank you, Alma, so much for creating this platform for us to change the conversation and expand the narrative. People can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place to connect with us. Audacity is relaunching this summer, so it is via LinkedIn, a connection to my personal page and a following of our company page on LinkedIn that you will be best exposed to our new website, new everything. So I'll say that. And you can also feel free to email me at erikan@audacityassets.com. Love to hear from you. Love having pen pals. And so fully encourage all of us to really dive into this next season of life. The world is definitely experiencing a change and
Yeah.
evolution. And I hope that those who feel inspired to rise to the occasion do so. And I'm happy to be a champion of anyone who's trying.
Amazing, amazing. We'll be in touch, Erikan. Thank you so much.